Hello, everyone. This is Julia from English Without Limit, and welcome back to the community. I have a few questions for you to think about before we dive in. Have you ever struggled to learn English when you were a child or teenager? Did you have a moment when you felt you finally understood something that seemed impossible before? Or maybe you have a story of someone you know who learned English against all odds. Keep these questions in your mind as we go through today's story. It's about real-life challenges and successes in learning English, and I think it will really inspire you. Today, I want to tell you a story about a young man named Thomas, who lived in a small village in England in the 1960s. Thomas came from a family where no one had ever studied English seriously. Most of his neighbors spoke only their local dialect, and English was considered a language of opportunity, something far away and difficult. But Thomas had a dream. He wanted to travel, meet people from other countries, and read books in English. He believed that if he could learn English, his life could change. At first, learning English was extremely difficult for Thomas. He had only one old English textbook, and it was filled with words and phrases he didn't understand. He tried to memorize lists of words, but he would forget them quickly. Sometimes he felt frustrated and thought, maybe English is just too hard for me. But he did not give up. Every evening, after helping his father with farm work, Thomas would sit by a small candle and practice reading aloud. He would repeat simple sentences over and over, even if he made mistakes. He understood something important early on. Making mistakes is part of learning. One day, a teacher from the nearby town visited Thomas's village. This teacher noticed Thomas practicing English by himself. She was amazed by his dedication and offered to help him. She gave Thomas extra books, corrected his pronunciation, and taught him new ways to remember words. She also told him to listen to English radio broadcasts every night. Thomas followed her advice carefully. He would sit with the radio for hours trying to understand songs, news, and conversations. At first, he could only understand a few words here and there, but gradually he began to recognize patterns and phrases. A turning point in Thomas's journey came when he received a letter from a pen pal in the United States. The young woman, named Sarah, was learning about life in England and wanted to practice her English. Thomas wrote back, and they exchanged letters every week. At first, Thomas's letters were very simple, short sentences, many mistakes, but Sarah encouraged him, corrected him politely, and shared new vocabulary. Writing to her gave Thomas the confidence to try new words, express ideas, and even make jokes in English. He realized that English was not just words in a book, it was a way to connect with people. After a few years of dedication, Thomas's English had improved dramatically. He could read novels, understand radio shows, and write letters that sounded natural. His dream of traveling began to feel possible. Eventually, he earned a scholarship to study in London, which would have been unimaginable when he first picked up that old textbook in his village. He often said that the key to learning English was patience, daily practice, and not being afraid of mistakes. Thomas's story is a great lesson for all of us. Learning a language can be challenging, especially when you feel alone or don't have many resources. But with determination, small daily steps, and support from others, it is possible to achieve remarkable progress. Think about your own journey. Are there small habits you can start today, like listening to a podcast, writing a few sentences, or speaking to a friend in English? Every step counts. I also want to share a few strategies Thomas used that you can apply. First, practice every day, even if it is just a few minutes. Second, use multiple sources, books, letters, radio, or online content. Third, don't be afraid of mistakes. They are your teachers. And fourth, try to connect with real people in English. It makes learning meaningful and fun. Thomas's experience reminds us that language learning is not just about grammar or vocabulary. It is about communication, curiosity, and persistence. Now, think about your own English story. Have you faced moments where you thought you could not improve? What small steps can you take today that could help you in the long run? Thomas's life shows that consistency, even in the smallest actions, creates big results over time. His journey from a small village to traveling and communicating in English is a proof that anyone can succeed with patience and effort. As you listen, I encourage you to imagine yourself in Thomas's shoes. Feel his struggles, his excitement when he understood a new word, and his joy when he could finally write a proper letter to Sarah. This story is not just history. It is a reflection of how determination and a love for learning can transform your life. Imagine what your English could look like a few years from now if you practiced a little every day. Thomas's story also teaches us about the value of mentorship. The teacher who helped him did not just give him knowledge, she inspired him to believe in himself. Similarly, if you have access to a teacher, a friend, or a community of learners, use it. Sharing your journey, getting feedback, and learning from others can accelerate your progress. Think about this as you continue your English practice today. Finally, remember that every learner's path is unique. Thomas had challenges specific to his time and place, but the principles remain the same. Dedication, daily practice, courage can make mistakes, and finding ways to connect English to your life. Whether it is reading a story, listening to a podcast, writing a short email, or speaking to someone in English, every action helps build your skills. Keep moving forward, and one day you might also have a story like Thomas's to share. After moving to London for his scholarship, Thomas faced a completely new set of challenges. Life in the city was very different from his small village. People spoke quickly, using expressions and slang he had never heard before. In the first few weeks, Thomas often felt lost in conversations and overwhelmed by the pace of English around him. He realized that learning from books and letters was not enough. He needed to practice listening and speaking in real-life situations. To improve, Thomas decided to immerse himself completely. He spent his mornings in the library reading newspapers, novels, and magazines. He focused on understanding context, guessing the meanings of words from sentences, and noticing how native speakers structured their writing. Afternoons were spent in cafes, parks, and public spaces, where he would listen to conversations and try to pick out familiar words. At first, he could catch only fragments, but over time, he began to understand more. He also made a habit of repeating sentences he heard, mimicking the intonation, rhythm, and pronunciation. This helped him sound more natural and confident when speaking. Thomas discovered another powerful tool: note-taking. He carried a small notebook wherever he went. Whenever he heard a new word, phrase, or idiom, he would write it down immediately, along with an example sentence. Later, he would review these notes daily, trying to use each new word in his own sentences. Over weeks and months, his vocabulary expanded significantly, and he felt more confident expressing complex ideas. This is Julia from English Without Limit. This habit of actively noting language is something you can start today. Even writing just a few new words a day can make a big difference over time. Making friends also played a crucial role. Thomas met students from different countries, each with their own level of English. By practicing with them, he gained exposure to different accents and styles of speaking. Some friends were patient and corrected his mistakes, while others encouraged him to take risks and try new expressions. Through these interactions, Thomas realized that real communication is more important than perfect grammar. Mistakes were part of the learning process, and he began to feel less afraid of speaking up. One particular challenge Thomas faced was understanding idiomatic expressions. English, he realized, is full of phrases that do not make sense when translated word for word. Expressions like break the ice, hit the nail on the head, or barking up the wrong tree confused him at first. To overcome this, Thomas created many dialogues for himself. He would write short scenarios using these expressions and act them out, sometimes even recording his voice. By putting these phrases into context, he was able to remember them much more easily than by memorizing definitions. Thomas also discovered the importance of listening to native speakers through media. He listened to radio shows, watched plays, and later started following television programs.
He paid attention not only to the words, but also to body language, tone, and cultural references. Understanding these subtleties improved both his comprehension and his ability to express himself naturally. He began to see that mastering a language involves more than grammar and vocabulary. It's also about understanding culture, context, and emotion. Writing became another crucial skill. Thomas started keeping a daily journal in English, recording his thoughts, experiences, and reflections. At first, his sentences were simple and he made many mistakes, but writing every day helped him organize his ideas and notice patterns in his own errors. He would review previous entries, correct mistakes, and gradually use more sophisticated vocabulary and sentence structures. By the end of the first year, his journal was full of rich, detailed writing that reflected his growing mastery of English.
An important part of Thomas's journey was learning to self-correct without fear. Whenever he made mistakes in speaking, he would repeat the sentence correctly afterward. For example, if he said, "I went to the library yesterday," he would pause and say, "I went to the library yesterday." Over time, this method of immediate self-correction reduced the frequency of errors. It also built his confidence, because he realized that making mistakes did not stop him from communicating effectively. Thomas's perseverance led to several small victories that kept him motivated. He successfully gave a presentation in English at his college, joined a debate club, and even performed in a short play. Each success, no matter how small, reinforced his belief that he could achieve fluency. These achievements also taught him an important lesson. Learning a language is a journey of consistent effort, patience, and celebration of progress along the way. Throughout this journey, Thomas's story shows that language learning is multifaceted. It involves reading, listening, writing, speaking, cultural awareness, and social interaction. For advanced learners, the focus shifts from memorizing vocabulary to understanding nuance, tone, and style. Thomas spent hours analyzing the differences between formal and informal English, practicing how to adapt his language depending on the situation. For example, he learned to write formal emails for academic purposes while using more relaxed language with friends or pen pals. Thomas also realized the value of teaching others. After gaining confidence in London, Thomas began helping new students who struggled with English. Teaching allowed him to reinforce his own skills, explain grammar and vocabulary clearly, and understand different learning styles. He discovered that when you teach a language, you see it in a new light and deepen your own mastery. Helping others also gave him a sense of purpose and motivation that fueled his ongoing learning. Another critical lesson from Thomas's journey is the importance of setting achievable goals. He broke his large dream of fluency into small, measurable targets. For example, he aimed to learn 5 new words per day, write 1 paragraph every night, or hold a 5-minute conversation in English without stopping. Each small goal created a sense of accomplishment and kept him moving forward. This approach of gradual progress is something that every learner can adopt to stay motivated and avoid feeling overwhelmed. Thomas's journey was not without setbacks. Sometimes he faced frustration when he could not understand a lecture, failed to get a word right, or misunderstood a conversation. But he learned to view these moments as learning opportunities rather than failures. By reflecting on mistakes, asking questions, and seeking feedback, he turned challenges into stepping stones. Advanced learners can relate to this process as language mastery is rarely linear. Patience and resilience are key. Interestingly, Thomas also explored the connection between memory and language learning. He found that associating words with images, sounds, or emotions helped him remember them better. For example, he would picture a stormy sea when learning the word turbulent, or connect the word elated with a personal moment of joy. This multi-sensory approach strengthened his retention and made learning more engaging. By the end of his second year in London, Thomas's English had reached a high level.
He could follow complex lectures, understand subtle humor, and engage in debates with native speakers. What once felt impossible, a dream of fluency, had become reality. Thomas's story reminds us that learning a language is not only about knowledge, but also about courage, persistence, creativity, and connecting with others. Thomas also reflected on the emotional side of language learning. He realized that confidence and mindset play a huge role in success. Positive thinking, celebrating progress, and maintaining curiosity kept him motivated even when tasks seemed difficult. He encouraged himself daily with phrases like, "I can improve every day," and "mistakes help me learn." This mental approach is as important as grammar, vocabulary, or pronunciation, and advanced learners often benefit from developing resilience and a growth mindset. Through Thomas's journey, we can see that English learning is a lifelong adventure. It is not about perfection, but communication, understanding, and connection. Every challenge he faced, every letter he wrote, every conversation he had contributed to his growth. For listeners at the C1, C2 level, this story illustrates that immersion, consistent practice, goal setting, cultural engagement, and reflection are essential strategies for mastering English. Now, think about your own learning journey. Which of Thomas's strategies can you adopt today? Maybe it's keeping a journal, practicing speaking with friends, listening to podcasts, or setting small goals each day. Imagine yourself improving step by step, month by month, and one day looking back to see how far you've come. Thomas's story shows that patience, determination, and creative practice can turn a dream of fluency into reality. After gaining confidence in London, Thomas began to focus on applying English in everyday life, not just academics. One of the first areas he practiced was family conversations. Even though his family remained in his small village, he made it a habit to call them regularly. He would share simple stories about his day, describe what he ate, talk about the weather, or explain small challenges he faced. At first, these calls were difficult. Thomas often searched for the right words, paused frequently, and repeated sentences until they sounded correct. But over time, these conversations became smoother. Talking about everyday topics like family routines helped him learn practical vocabulary that he could use immediately. Thomas also made efforts to learn about local culture and social life through friends. He would visit a friend's house for dinner and pay attention to casual conversations at the table. Words like, "Could you pass the salt?" or "I'm going to take out the trash" seemed simple, but they became important tools for real-life communication. He practiced polite phrases, expressions for greetings, and ways to ask for help or offer assistance. Thomas realized that learning English in a classroom was very different from using it to connect with people on a personal level. Everyday interactions taught him tone, timing, and informal expressions, which are often missing in textbooks. One of Thomas's closest friends in London was a man named Peter, who had grown up speaking English natively. Peter invited Thomas to join family gatherings, weekend trips, and casual sports activities. These experiences were extremely valuable. Thomas learned to understand jokes, subtle hints, and conversational cues that he had struggled with before. For instance, when Peter's younger brother said, "You're pulling my leg," Thomas initially thought it was literal. After asking, he discovered it meant, "I'm joking with you." These small insights into idiomatic language and humor helped Thomas feel more confident in everyday settings. Thomas also began exploring social activities with friends outside of formal environments. He joined a local football club where he had to communicate with teammates during games. Phrases like, "pass the ball," or "I'm open on the left," required quick thinking and fluent understanding. Practicing English while playing sports was both fun and challenging. He realized that language is often about context, speed, and tone, especially in dynamic situations. These experiences strengthened his listening skills and gave him confidence in informal conversations. Daily life routines became another important area for learning. Thomas would go shopping, visit the market, or order food at cafes. He practiced questions like, "How much does this cost?" Or, "Do you have this in a different size?" He also learned how to explain preferences politely, say thank you, and respond to small talk with shopkeepers. These everyday interactions gave him confidence and built a sense of independence. Even small phrases like, "Could I have a cup of tea, please?" or "I'll take the same as yesterday," became stepping stones for fluency. Visiting friends' homes also exposed Thomas to cultural traditions and family habits. He learned how families in London discussed plans for the weekend, celebrated birthdays, or talked about daily problems. Listening to these conversations, he absorbed informal expressions, ways of giving advice, and even subtle humor that native speakers used naturally. He practiced these phrases with his friends, sometimes role-playing scenarios to make sure he could use the language comfortably. Another daily use area Thomas focused on was communication with neighbors. He learned phrases for greetings, asking about someone's day, and offering help. For example, "How are you today?" or "Do you need any help carrying that?" became part of his routine. These small exchanges helped him understand polite social conventions and develop a natural rhythm in speaking. He noticed that frequent small conversations every day added up to real progress in fluency. Thomas also spent time strengthening his ability to narrate experiences in English. He practiced telling friends about his childhood, describing the village he grew up in, and sharing stories about his family. For example, he would say, "When I was little, my sister and I used to help our mother in the garden every morning. She taught us how to plant vegetables and water the plants." These storytelling exercises helped him organize thoughts, use past tense correctly, and expand vocabulary for emotions. In addition, Thomas focused on expressing opinions and preferences in daily contexts. He practiced phrases like, "I think this is a good idea," "I prefer tea over coffee," or "In my opinion, this movie is excellent." He learned to add reasons to support his opinions, which made conversations more natural and engaging. Friends appreciated his effort, and he began to feel more confident discussing topics ranging from hobbies to local events. Traveling around London and nearby towns gave Thomas additional opportunities to practice English. He would ask for directions, purchase tickets, and speak with people from different regions, asking questions like, "Excuse me, could you tell me how to get to the train station?" Or, "Is this bus going to Oxford?" helped him refine polite speech and adapt to various accents. Each interaction, no matter how brief, was a chance to practice listening and responding spontaneously. Thomas also discovered the importance of planning small gatherings at home. He invited friends over for dinner, tea, or game nights. Hosting required him to use English for organizing, giving instructions, and making polite conversation. For example, he learned to say, "Please help yourself to the food," or "Can I get you another drink?" Hosting also gave him confidence in speaking in a slightly formal but friendly way. These experiences reinforced his ability to switch between casual and semi-formal language depending on the context. Cultural events and festivals provided additional opportunities for social English. Thomas attended music concerts, theater performances, and local fairs. He would chat with strangers about the event, discuss his favorite parts, or ask questions. Engaging in small talk in these contexts helped him practice natural expressions, learn slang, and improve listening under more realistic conditions. Over time, he became comfortable handling interruptions, overlapping conversations, and people speaking quickly, all which are common in real-life English environments. Through daily life, family interactions, and friendships, Thomas developed not only language skills, but also social awareness. He learned how to respond politely, ask questions to clarify meaning, and adapt his tone according to different situations. He realized that fluency involves much more than grammar. It requires empathy, timing, and understanding social cues. For example, knowing when to pause, when to use humor, and when to show agreement were all skills that advanced learners must master. Thomas also kept improving writing for daily purposes. He wrote thank you notes for friends, short emails about plans, and casual messages to keep in touch. He practiced texting in English with friends, balancing informal expressions with correct spelling. This helped him become comfortable switching between spoken and written English in social contexts. Each small piece of writing strengthened his confidence and reinforced vocabulary and grammar structures he had learned. Spending time with friends from different countries gave Thomas insight into how English works as a bridge between cultures. They would compare expressions, discuss traditions, and even correct each other's mistakes in a friendly way. These multicultural interactions exposed him to different accents, word choices, and informal phrases. Thomas learned that flexibility and curiosity are essential when communicating with people from various backgrounds. Family and friendship interactions also gave Thomas chances to practice describing feelings, thoughts, and experiences. Phrases like, "I'm feeling tired today," "I'm excited about the trip," or "that movie made me laugh," became common in his daily conversations. Expressing emotions naturally in English helped him connect with others and added richness to his language skills. It also boosted his confidence in using complex sentence structures and idiomatic expressions. Thomas even started role-playing common situations with friends to strengthen conversational skills. For example, they would pretend to order food at a restaurant, plan a weekend trip, or ask for help at a store. These exercises were enjoyable and highly practical, giving him the chance to practice vocabulary, pronunciation, and grammar in realistic contexts. Role-playing also helped him anticipate possible questions or responses, which reduced anxiety in real-life situations. Finally, Thomas realized that using English in daily life, family chats, friends, shopping, events, and travel was just as important as studying formally. Language becomes truly alive when it is used to connect with others, express ideas, and navigate everyday situations. For advanced learners, this emphasizes the need for regular practice in practical contexts. Even small daily interactions, when done consistently, lead to fluency over time. As Thomas's story shows, learning English through family, friends, and daily life builds confidence, naturalness, and flexibility. It teaches advanced learners to adapt to different situations, understand social cues, and communicate effectively. Listening, speaking, reading, and writing all come together in daily interactions, making language learning a practical and enjoyable journey. Thomas found that his English improved most when he incorporated it into daily routines with family and friends. One simple activity he practiced every day was cooking. Even though he lived alone, he would watch cooking shows, read recipes in English, and prepare meals while thinking aloud in English. He would describe his actions, saying things like, "I'm chopping the onions carefully," or "I'll boil the pasta for 10 minutes. This habit helped him practice action verbs, sequence words, and kitchen vocabulary. Sometimes he invited friends over to cook together, giving him an opportunity to explain the recipe, ask for help, and engage in casual conversation. Talking about family events was another useful strategy. When Thomas called his family in the village, he would ask about their daily routines, plans, and health. For example, he might say, "How is your garden doing?" Or, "Did you plant new vegetables this week?" Over time, he became comfortable asking questions, giving advice, and sharing updates. He also learned to express concern and care naturally, using phrases like, "I hope you are feeling better," or "Take care of yourself." These expressions are simple, but they build warmth in communication and give learners practice in speaking naturally about feelings and relationships. Thomas also practiced describing his surroundings and experiences to friends. For example, he would say, "Yesterday, I walked through the park. The leaves were falling and the air was crisp. It felt refreshing." Talking about ordinary experiences like this helped him use descriptive language, adjectives, and varied sentence structures. He realized that narrating daily events was one of the easiest ways to practice complex language without pressure. His friends often responded with curiosity or questions, which gave him more chances to use English actively. Social gatherings were another opportunity for practice. Thomas attended birthday parties, casual meetups, and weekend barbecues with friends. In these settings, he learned to start conversations, respond politely, and keep interactions flowing. Simple phrases like, "How have you been?" "It's great to see you," or "What are your plans for the weekend?" became routine. He also practiced listening carefully, asking for clarification when he didn't understand, and responding with interest. These small social skills are critical for advanced learners as they help make English communication smooth and natural. Hobbies provided an additional avenue for language learning. Thomas loved reading, and he joined a local book club. At first, discussing novels in English was intimidating. He struggled to explain his opinions, summarize chapters, and respond to questions. However, by preparing notes and using examples from the book, he gradually participated confidently. He learned phrases like, "I enjoyed the character development in this story," or "The author creates suspense effectively here." Discussing hobbies in English allows learners to combine personal interests with practical language practice, which makes learning more enjoyable and memorable. Sports and fitness also became daily used practice opportunities. Thomas went jogging with friends and played tennis on weekends. During these activities, he used English to give instructions, make suggestions, and cheer others on. Phrases like, "pass the ball," "try to run faster," or "well done," helped him practice short, energetic sentences common in spoken English. Additionally, informal conversations during rest breaks, such as, "I need a drink of water," or "let's meet again next week," built conversational fluency and comfort with spontaneous speech. Shopping and errands were another area where Thomas used English in daily life. Going to the market or grocery store gave him practice in asking about prices, selecting items, and interacting politely with shopkeepers. He would ask, "How much is this?" or "Can I have 2 of these, please?" He also learned to respond to small talk from shopkeepers, such as, "How was your day?" or "Did you enjoy your weekend?" These short interactions may seem simple, but they are excellent practice for vocabulary, sentence structure, and listening skills. Thomas also made a habit of sharing stories from his day with friends. He would say, "Today, I helped a neighbor carry groceries," or "I went to the library and found an interesting book about history." Sharing personal experiences helped him practice past tense, descriptive vocabulary, and connecting ideas. Naturally, friends would ask questions like, "What happened next?" or "How did you feel?" This interaction encouraged Thomas to expand his sentences and explain events more fully. For advanced learners, describing events in sequence, expressing opinions, and including details are key skills for fluency. He also explored expressing feelings and emotions in daily conversations. Talking about happiness, frustration, or excitement helped him practice useful phrases and vocabulary. For example, he would say, "I was so excited when I received a letter from my cousin," or "I felt frustrated because it rained during our picnic." Practicing emotional language helped him sound more natural and connect with others on a personal level. Friends and family members responded positively, encouraging him to continue using English in meaningful ways. Role-playing real-life situations became a fun way for Thomas to practice with friends. He would act out scenarios like ordering at a restaurant, asking for directions, making a phone call, or explaining a problem. This practice allowed him to use both prepared and spontaneous language, improving his confidence in daily situations. For example, he might pretend to book a hotel room and say, "I would like a single room for 2 nights, please. Is breakfast included?" Practicing these scenarios helped him anticipate language he might need in real life, reducing anxiety and improving fluency. Thomas also focused on developing polite conversation skills. Using phrases like, "Excuse me," "Could you please," or "Would you mind helping me?" became second nature. He learned how to agree or disagree politely, ask for clarification, and respond appropriately. These small phrases and strategies made his interactions smoother and more socially appropriate. Advanced learners benefit from paying attention to politeness, tone, and register, which are essential in family and social contexts. Visiting friends and family members in their homes offered additional learning opportunities. Thomas practiced greetings, compliments, and casual conversation. For example, he would say, "Your house looks lovely. It's nice to meet your parents," or "Thank you for inviting me." He also learned how to participate in small talk about topics like weather, hobbies, or food. This constant exposure helped him internalize social norms and vocabulary for everyday interactions. Technology also helped Thomas practice daily use English. He used messaging apps to text friends, video calls to speak with family, and social media to comment and engage in conversations. Typing and speaking in real time required him to think quickly, choose the right words, and use correct grammar. Over time, these small digital interactions built both confidence and fluency. He realized that English learning can happen anywhere, not just in classrooms or formal settings. Thomas also found joy in combining English with hobbies. He played board games, discussed movies, and joined local music clubs where English was the common language. Describing strategies in a game, explaining favorite movies, or talking about song lyrics allowed him to practice complex sentences and opinion phrases. For example, he would say, "I think the ending of the movie was surprising because of the twist," or "This song reminds me of my childhood." Integrating language learning into enjoyable activities made practice consistent and fun. Additionally, Thomas learned the importance of patience and observation. He would listen carefully when others spoke, notice sentence patterns, and repeat phrases silently to himself. Observing how native speakers paused, emphasized words, and responded in conversations helped him develop a natural rhythm and intonation in English. Advanced learners can benefit from careful observation combined with active practice, as it improves pronunciation, comprehension, and fluency in everyday interactions. Even simple routines like cleaning, laundry, or grocery shopping became opportunities for English practice. He would talk to himself, describe actions, and plan tasks aloud in English. For example, "I need to wash the clothes first, then prepare lunch," or "I should buy milk and bread today." Speaking about routine tasks may feel basic, but it reinforces vocabulary, sentence structure, and everyday expressions that make daily English usage natural and automatic. Thomas also strengthened relationships through language. By using English to ask questions, give advice, or share experiences, he connected more deeply with friends and family. Expressions like, "I'm happy for you," "Do you want to join me?" or "Let's go together," helped him sound friendly, supportive, and natural. Language became a tool not just for communication, but for building bonds and trust in everyday life. Finally, Thomas's experience shows that daily life, family, and friends offer endless opportunities to learn and practice English. Every conversation, task, or shared experience is a chance to expand vocabulary, improve pronunciation, and gain confidence. For advanced learners, integrating language into real-life situations strengthens fluency, makes communication meaningful, and prepares learners for both social and professional contexts. Thomas realized that some of the best ways to improve English were through ordinary daily interactions with family and friends. For example, meal times became practice opportunities. When he visited friends or shared meals with neighbors, he would talk about the food, the cooking process, and even express opinions about taste. Phrases like, "This soup is delicious. Could you pass the bread, please?" Or, "I like the flavor of these vegetables," helped him practice descriptive vocabulary, polite requests, and conversational tone. Discussing daily activities over food also allowed Julia to respond to questions, make comments, and engage naturally in back-and-forth dialogue. She also practiced talking about routines and plans. Conversations with friends often included discussions about morning routines, weekend activities, or family schedules. For instance, she would say, "I usually wake up at 6, have breakfast, and go for a walk." Or, "This weekend, I'm planning to visit my cousin and help in the garden." These sentences helped her use time expressions, sequencing words, and verbs related to daily life, asking questions in return like, "What do you usually do on Saturdays?" Or, "Do you cook at home often?" added variety to conversations and encouraged interactive speaking. Small talk became an important part of her social practice. Julia discovered that casual greetings and friendly questions built connection and helped her practice natural English. Simple exchanges like, "How was your day? Did you enjoy your weekend?" Or, "What's new with you?" gave her the chance to respond spontaneously and expand on ideas. Over time, she learned to add details to her answers, turning brief replies into richer conversations. For example, instead of just saying, "I went shopping," she would say, "I went shopping at the local market and bought fresh vegetables. I also saw my neighbor, and we talked about the weather." This type of expansion is crucial for advanced learners because it adds fluency and confidence to everyday speech. Julia also practiced describing her feelings and thoughts in daily interactions. Talking about emotions in English helped her connect with others on a personal level. She would say, "I'm feeling tired because I stayed up late studying," or, "I was so happy when my friend visited yesterday." Expressing feelings required using adjectives, adverbs, and sometimes complex sentences, which strengthened her language skills naturally. Friends responded with empathy or shared their own experiences, creating meaningful exchanges that encouraged further use of English. Visiting neighbors or helping family members also gave Julia real-life practice. When she helped carry groceries, fix a small problem at home, or tidy a shared space, she would describe actions and ask questions like, "Do you need help with this?" Or, "Should I carry the boxes to the kitchen?" Practicing English in practical, real-world contexts helped her develop both vocabulary and confidence. She realized that language is most useful when it solves real communication needs. Julia also used leisure time with friends to practice English creatively. For example, when playing board games or card games, she described strategies, suggested moves, or reacted to outcomes. She would say, "I think you should play this card. That was a clever move." Or, "I didn't expect that." These interactions required her to think quickly, use appropriate expressions, and maintain conversational flow. Similarly, while watching movies or listening to music with friends, she would comment, describe, and ask questions, practicing comprehension, opinion sharing, and expressive language all at once. Shopping trips and errands became consistent language practice opportunities. Julia learned to ask for prices, sizes, and availability, and she practiced polite interactions with shopkeepers. Phrases like, "Do you have this in a smaller size?" or "Could I pay by card?" were repeated until she felt confident using them naturally. Even short exchanges such as "Thank you" or "Have a nice day" helped her sound polite and fluent. Advanced learners benefit from using repeated real-life interactions to reinforce vocabulary and develop conversational rhythm. Julia also focused on storytelling in casual contexts. She shared anecdotes with friends, like describing a funny event at the market or explaining something interesting she observed. She learned to organize her stories clearly, use past tense accurately, and include descriptive details. For example, she would say, "Yesterday, I saw a cat chasing a dog in the park. It was so funny and everyone was watching." Storytelling practice helped her expand vocabulary, connect ideas, and gain confidence in longer spoken exchanges.
Daily life also included planning and coordinating with friends. Julia learned to suggest activities, make invitations, and negotiate times or locations. Phrases like, "Shall we meet at the cafe at 5?"
or "Would you like to join me for a walk?" allowed her to use polite language, modal verbs, and conversational structures naturally. Responding to suggestions, expressing preferences, and confirming plans helped her practice both comprehension and speaking in interactive situations. Hobbies provided additional daily use practice. Julia enjoyed gardening, reading, and music. She would explain her gardening process to friends, describing planting techniques, watering schedules, and progress. For example, she might say, "I planted tomatoes this morning and I hope they grow well," or "The roses are blooming beautifully. The colors are amazing." Similarly, discussing books or music allowed her to describe themes, share opinions, and ask for recommendations, which added richness to conversations. Julia also practiced giving advice and making suggestions in everyday conversations. She would say things like, "I think you should try this recipe," or "Maybe you can take a break if you're tired." Offering advice helped her practice conditional structures and polite expressions, while receiving feedback from friends encouraged more natural dialogue. These interactions reinforced practical language skills and social awareness simultaneously. Traveling locally, Julia used English in shops, restaurants, and public transport. Asking for directions, checking timetables, and interacting with drivers or staff strengthened her confidence in spontaneous conversation. For example, she might say, "Excuse me, could you tell me which bus goes to the library?" Or, "Is there a nearby cafe where I can have lunch?" Handling these situations helped her navigate real-world environments while practicing polite, functional English. She also developed skills for expressing likes and dislikes in daily conversations. For example, she would say, "I really enjoy playing football on weekends," or "I'm not a fan of very spicy food." Friends would respond with their own preferences, creating interactive dialogue. Expressing opinions naturally is important for advanced learners because it allows meaningful social interactions and helps practice vocabulary related to personal interests and tastes. Casual conversations also included sharing experiences about daily challenges or successes. Julia described completing tasks, learning new things, or experiencing small setbacks. Julia, host of English Without Limit, might say, "I managed to fix the leaky tap today," or "I had trouble understanding the new recipe, but I tried again." Talking about successes and challenges allowed her to practice past tense, sequencing, and cause and effect expressions naturally. Friends responded with encouragement or shared similar experiences, reinforcing the use of language for real-life purposes. Julia also practiced giving instructions and explanations. For example, when helping a friend cook, she would say, "First, chop the onions, then heat the pan," or "Add a pinch of salt and stir carefully." Providing clear, sequential instructions required her to think about vocabulary, grammar, and clarity of expression. These exercises enhanced both speaking and listening skills, while also building confidence in communicating with others. Daily routines, hobbies, social events, and family interactions all contributed to Julia's ongoing fluency. Each simple exchange, asking questions, describing events, giving advice, expressing feelings, or narrating stories built vocabulary, sentence variety, and natural rhythm. By consistently practicing English in these everyday contexts, Julia became fluent not only in formal writing and academic language, but also in the casual, practical language needed for daily life. Role-playing daily scenarios with friends became a key strategy. Julia would simulate situations like visiting a doctor, returning an item at a store, or explaining a problem to a landlord. Practicing these scenarios helped her anticipate vocabulary, construct clear sentences, and gain confidence in real-life situations. It also reduced anxiety because she knew she had rehearsed common interactions. These exercises are particularly useful for learners who want to prepare for practical daily communication. Technology further enhanced Julia's daily practice. She used messaging apps to stay in touch with friends and family, write short notes, and ask questions. Video calls allowed her to practice speaking in real time, observe facial expressions, and respond naturally. Social media gave her opportunities to comment, share opinions, and interact with a wider English-speaking audience. By integrating technology into her daily life, she practiced English in multiple ways and contexts, making learning both fun and practical. Even mundane tasks became chances to speak English. While cleaning, doing laundry, or organizing her space, Julia would talk aloud in English, describing actions and plans, saying things like, "I need to fold the clothes first, then vacuum the floor," or "I'll prepare lunch after this," allowed her to practice sentence structure, verbs, and sequencing naturally. These small daily exercises built habit and reinforced the language without pressure. Julia also focused on using English to maintain relationships. She would check in with friends and family, express care, and ask about their day. Phrases like, "How are you feeling?" "Did you enjoy your weekend?" or "Let's meet soon," helped her communicate warmly and naturally. Regular use of English in social contexts reinforced fluency, while also creating stronger personal connections. Finally, Julia's experience shows that everyday life, family interactions, friendships, daily tasks, hobbies, and social activities are an essential part of language learning. Practicing English in practical, meaningful contexts allows learners to build confidence, vocabulary, and fluency naturally. Consistent use in real situations is just as important as formal study and can accelerate learning. Julia realized that learning English in daily life required consistency and observation. Each day presented countless opportunities to practice. Simple conversations with family, even over the phone, became powerful exercises. She would start by asking about routines, health, or news. For example, she would say, "How was your morning?" or "Did you go to the market today?" These small questions encouraged dialogue, giving her practice in forming questions, using correct tense, and responding naturally. Over time, these conversations became longer and more detailed, allowing her to share stories, opinions, and advice. She also noticed the importance of sharing daily experiences with friends. When meeting someone for coffee or a walk, Julia would describe what she had done recently. For instance, she might say, "I spent the morning organizing my room, then I went for a short jog." Friends would respond, ask follow-up questions, or share their own activities. This gave Julia a chance to practice sequencing words, like first, then, after that, and finally. It also allowed her to use connecting phrases and transition words, which made her speech more natural and fluid. Daily chores offered another opportunity for language practice. Whether cooking, cleaning, or grocery shopping, Julia would narrate her actions out loud, saying things like, "I need to wash the dishes before I cook lunch," or "I will vacuum the living room and then mop the floor." Helped her practice verbs, sentence structure, and sequencing. Repeating these phrases regularly made them natural and automatic, turning everyday activities into language lessons.
Shopping and running errands were particularly useful for conversational English. Julia learned to ask about prices, availability, and directions in stores and markets. Questions like, "Do you have this in a larger size?" Or, "Where can I find fresh vegetables?" gave her confidence in functional English. Interactions with cashiers, shopkeepers, and other customers helped her adapt to different speaking styles, accents, and speed. She also learned to respond politely with phrases like, "Thank you very much," or "Have a good day," which added to her fluency and social awareness. Social gatherings with friends provided rich practice for daily conversation. Julia would attend the casual dinners, birthday parties, and weekend meetups. She practiced greetings, asking questions, and expressing opinions. For example, she might say, "I really enjoyed the movie last night. Did you like it too?" Or, "The cake is delicious. Who baked it?" Participating in these interactions helped her learn informal expressions, conversational tone, and the rhythm of natural speech. Friends often corrected her gently or suggested alternative words, which enhanced her vocabulary and confidence. Julia also focused on describing feelings and emotions naturally. Conversations often included discussing happiness, frustration, or excitement. She learned to use phrases like, "I was so happy to see my friend yesterday," or "I felt frustrated because it rained while we were planning a picnic." Talking about emotions helped her practice adjectives, adverbs, and sentence variety, while also connecting on a deeper level with others. Friends responded with empathy or shared similar experiences, encouraging continued use of English in meaningful ways. She began to explore storytelling in casual conversations. Sharing small anecdotes about daily experiences or past events gave her practice in past tense, descriptive language, and connecting ideas. For instance, she might say, "Yesterday, I saw a dog chasing a ball in the park and it was hilarious. People were laughing too." Narrating stories helped her organize thoughts, expand sentences, and use expressive language naturally. Over time, she noticed that storytelling improved both her speaking and listening skills as she became more comfortable following the flow of conversation. Role-playing common situations with friends became another effective method. Julia, host of English Without Limit, would act out scenarios like ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, or booking tickets. For example, she might practice saying, "I would like a single room for 2 nights, please. Is breakfast included?" These exercises prepared her for real-life interactions and helped her anticipate vocabulary and sentence structures she would need. Practicing in a safe, friendly environment reduced anxiety and made spontaneous conversations easier. Daily interactions with neighbors and acquaintances were valuable as well. Julia practiced greetings, small talk, and polite expressions, like, "How's your day going?" or "Do you need any help carrying that?" Engaging with people in everyday situations helped her understand tone, timing, and social cues. Even brief conversations contributed to fluency, reinforcing vocabulary and sentence patterns in natural contexts. Technology played a key role in her daily English practice. Julia used messaging apps to stay connected with friends and family, write short notes, and ask questions. Video calls allowed real-time conversation, helping her observe facial expressions and respond naturally. Social media gave her opportunities to comment, ask for advice, and share experiences in English. Using technology consistently helped her integrate English into modern, everyday life, making practice enjoyable and relevant. Hobbies provided additional opportunities for daily practice. Julia loved reading, music, and gardening. She would explain her hobbies to friends, describe what she was reading, or discuss a song she liked. For example, she might say, "I started reading a mystery novel yesterday. The plot is intriguing and the characters are very detailed."
Discussing hobbies in English helped her use specialized vocabulary, practice expressing opinions, and engage in meaningful conversations. Friends also focused on giving instructions and advice in daily life. She learned to explain processes clearly and politely. For instance, when helping a friend cook, she would say, "First, chop the onions, then saute them for 5 minutes, or you could add a pinch of salt to enhance the flavor." Giving advice and instructions helped her practice imperatives, sequencing, and polite language naturally. Friends appreciated the guidance and responded with their own suggestions, creating interactive, practical English practice. Even simple conversations about health, schedules, or errands became opportunities to expand language skills. Julia would say, "I need to go to the pharmacy and buy some medicine," or "I have an appointment at the dentist tomorrow." Discussing daily responsibilities required her to use precise vocabulary, question forms, and future tense, all of which reinforced functional English usage. Small, frequent practice in real situations proved more effective than isolated study sessions.
Social and cultural activities provided further opportunities. Attending local fairs, concerts, or community events exposed Julia to natural spoken English. She would chat with attendees, ask questions about the event, and describe what she saw. For example, she might say, "The music was amazing and the crowd was really lively." Or, "I tried a local dish and it tasted fantastic." These experiences built confidence in listening, comprehension, and responding spontaneously. Family interactions also helped Julia practice polite requests, apologies, and expressions of gratitude. Saying things like, "Could you help me with this?" "I'm sorry for being late," or "Thank you for your help," reinforced social etiquette and natural phrasing. Daily repetition of these phrases made them second nature, allowing her to communicate politely and effectively in various contexts. Julia also explored expressing preferences and opinions. She would discuss movies, food, or weekend plans using phrases like, "I prefer tea over coffee," or "I really enjoyed the new series on TV." Expressing likes and dislikes helped her practice adjectives, sentence variety, and connecting ideas, while also encouraging interactive dialogue with friends and family. These conversations often led to debates or discussions, which further improved fluency and critical thinking in English. Traveling locally allowed Julia to practice functional English. Asking for directions, buying tickets, or making inquiries in public spaces required polite, clear communication. For example, she might say, "Excuse me, which bus goes to the library?" Or, "Is there a nearby cafe I could try?" These interactions reinforced listening and speaking skills in practical contexts and provided opportunities to practice quick thinking and polite phrasing. Casual interactions such as chatting about the weather or local news also contributed to fluency. Julia would say, "It's quite chilly today. I hope it warms up later." Or, "Did you hear about the festival next week?" Discussing everyday topics built vocabulary, comfort in small talk, and confidence in spontaneous conversation. These interactions, while simple, are essential for daily communication and advanced fluency. Through this daily use approach, Julia realized that language learning is not limited to classrooms or textbooks. Every interaction, whether cooking, shopping, chatting, or planning activities, is an opportunity to practice, improve, and connect with others. Consistency, observation, and active participation in real-life situations make advanced learners fluent, adaptable, and confident in English. Julia's English learning journey continued to revolve around family, friends, and daily interactions. One of the habits she developed was sharing small daily stories with her friends. For example, after returning from the market, she would describe what she had bought, what she saw, or even a funny encounter with a neighbor. She might say, "I saw an old man walking his dog, and the dog tried to chase a squirrel. It was quite funny."
This practice helped her expand vocabulary, use past tense correctly, and add descriptive details while improving her fluency in casual storytelling.
Conversations about family life were also very helpful. Julia learned to ask questions, share news, and express care naturally. For example, she would ask, "How is your sister doing?" Or, "Did your father enjoy the garden today?" These simple questions gave her practice with vocabulary related to family, routine activities, and emotions. Over time, she began sharing her own experiences in greater detail, saying things like, "Yesterday, I helped my mother prepare dinner and we tried a new recipe together. It was fun and we laughed a lot." Talking about family life in English helped Julia, host of English Without Limit, connect emotionally and socially, making language learning more meaningful. Daily chores and activities became another arena for English practice. Julia would talk about washing clothes, cooking meals, cleaning the house, or shopping for groceries. She would describe actions, make plans, or give herself reminders aloud. Phrases like, "I need to mop the floor before lunch," or "I'll fold the laundry after I finish cooking," helped her practice sequencing words, verbs, and sentence structure. Naturally, even these simple, repetitive tasks contributed significantly to fluency when practiced consistently. Shopping trips provided abundant opportunities for practical English use. Julia would ask for prices, sizes, and availability, using polite expressions like, "Could I please have 2 of these?" Or, "Do you have this in a larger size?" She also practiced responding to small talk from shopkeepers, such as, "How's your day?" or "Did you find everything you needed?" These short, practical interactions were excellent exercises for listening comprehension, vocabulary, and polite conversational skills. Repeating these exchanges daily helped Julia internalize natural speech patterns. In summary, Julia's daily life, family interactions, chores, hobbies, social events, and practical errands became a rich classroom for English. By speaking aloud, engaging with friends and strangers, using technology, and reflecting on her experiences, she practiced vocabulary, grammar, sentence structure, and natural conversation in meaningful contexts. The key takeaway is that language learning is not limited to textbooks or formal lessons. Every interaction, no matter how small, offers an opportunity to build fluency, confidence, and social awareness. Consistency, observation, and active participation turn everyday moments into powerful learning experiences. Through these practices, Julia demonstrated that integrating English into daily life is the most effective way to become fluent, adaptable, and confident, making learning practical, enjoyable, and truly limitless.